We're gonna be a little bit earlier this week. And I'm gonna wait again. We actually have someone here today. He's tired. I thought he was gonna do something cute though for the beginning. But this is cute enough. Super cute. Yay! I know. I'm still trying to figure out a schedule for these. So bear with me as we just make sure we get them in weekly. Right now the priority is just making sure that they happen. And at least they'll be recorded and available. Hi everyone. Instead of not getting one in. I felt like it would be more valuable to make sure we get it in. Oh, hi guys. He's so cute. Can we just look at him for a second? He's so cute. How's everyone's week going? Hi everyone. It's a good question. We're going to start with some questions that I had previously, but then I'll definitely go through here and kind of wrap up like we did last time. Okay, we're going to give it a little bit more time and then we're going to go. So for those of you that haven't done this before, so we're just going to answer some questions that I've already asked for previously. And they're saved here on my Instagram page, and then I also put them up on my YouTube channel. So you can find them in either place. They're here if you go to the Reels or just scroll through my main page. They're going to be here, but some people have had problems with trying to listen to them because some of them are like clocking in at an hour and a half, and this app isn't really conducive to doing other things or multitasking or even watching a video that long. So I have been putting them on my YouTube, and that's easier for you to multitask and listen and still hang in here for an hour and a half, or pause me and go do live things. Lots of people asking this question on letting go. Do y'all want to kind of elaborate more? Because that's like the 5th one I've seen. We can definitely go into that. But I'm going to start here real quick. Just kind of how we do this. We're going to answer questions, and then as we get through some of these big questions, I'll put up the prompt again and we'll go into depths on other questions. Hi, Mom. Sorry, I just saw my mom. My mom is here with us today. I got to talk to them earlier, out and about. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to start with the first question that I got for today, and we're going to go into it kind of how we do everything, because we're not just here to occupy time. Your time is your most valuable thing, and it's your life, and it's the whole point of everything is to enjoy your time. So if we're going to be here, we need to accomplish something. If I'm going to be here, I want to accomplish something, and so that's the intention that's going to be spent during this time. So with that being said, the reason I don't just like answer a question, because I got questions on questions, is I want you to also learn how to think. That's the point of this, is not just what are my answers for these questions. There's value in that because of how I think, but the value is going to be for you to start changing how you think, how you process, how you utilize language, how you interpret things, and how you use your own mind to go through these things on your own, so that when you have a million different questions, or you're sitting there at home alone, or going through a healing expression in your physical body, that you can think through these things on your own, utilizing a truthful way of thinking, not just another paradigm or a procedure or doctrine or something. Just how do I think logically, critically, and truthfully, and then how do I arrive at an answer? So that's how I want to approach these questions, because I think some of the value is just going to be in how do we dissect this? How do we pick it apart to see all of its pieces to come to a conclusion of truth, not just, what does allopathic medicine say about it? What does naturopathic medicine say about it? What does, somebody who does both? But what's the truth? Like, if we were to distill it down, what is here? What's the truth? And then how do we go about finding something as powerful as what we call an answer? So the first question is, can anything be healed by following the rules? And I know some of you that have been here before, you're probably already shaking your head in a million different ways just on the wording of this. And I want you to know the wording is never a problem. So if you're the one who wrote this question, it's a beautiful question. There's nothing wrong with the question. But I want you to feel the difference in how we've got to think through it. So we're going to pick it apart. Can anything be healed? In general, yes, right? So we say it all the time that healing is a promise, right? And that's part of what we're trying to restructure our minds around, is not, I have to jump through hoops, I have to believe the right things, I have to be positive Polly all the time in order to heal. Or I have to have the right supplements, I have to do the right things, I have to jump through all the right hoops and be the most perfect version of a human in order to heal something. And then on top of that, if I have something really, really big, a word that's really, really big, not only do I have to jump through those hoops, but I have to do it more. I have to find even more tight, perfected hoops to jump through. And this is just a backwards way of thinking and gets really overwhelming, and that's part of what we've got to clear up here. So can anything be healed needs to kind of you need to look at yourself and ask that to yourself, because that is a very personal question. Depending on the individual, like we talked about last week with the real estate example, is it worth what it's going to require of you to change it? Needs to be the question, because the body just heals. It heals things you don't even know about. I promise you, like, I just got through getting rid of a lot of medical textbooks, and one of them was my pathology book, and it's so freaking huge. And that's just what we thought we knew, and that's already outdated, of all the things that could possibly go wrong in the human body. And so your body's healing things you don't even know about. Your body is healing things that you don't even know you should be scared of. And the things that you're aware of are the things that we can diagnose, the things that we can measure, the things that we can test for, or the things that you can visibly see or feel, right? So when it comes to healing, the body doesn't discriminate against what it can heal. It doesn't find, there's no hierarchy to it. Like, I will heal these things, but I won't heal these things. I will go after this, but I won't do this. I can heal this, but I can't heal this. So what is actually more true is, are you to a place in your life where you're willing to do what is required to get the results that you desire, right? So that's a different way of thinking than, is it possible for this to happen? And then how do I make it happen? It's already happening. Can you work with it? And are you willing to do what's required to do that? I've been watching, I think it's just a documentary on the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. I think it's Michael Jordan's documentary. And it just talks about what he put in to be the best of the best. And so were there other players? Are there other players forever? Yes. But for him to be who he was, there were certain things he had to do to achieve those things. And for some people, they didn't want to. And they were still good, and they still got, they still got paid, and they were still famous, but they weren't Michael Jordan. Why? Because they didn't want to do what he did, right? And the reason I'm watching this, he just showed up. Hi, you. So you've got to think of it in this way. Not, can it happen, but am I willing to do what's required to have those results? If yes, then go. If no, that's when you've got to really take an evaluation and get very clear on, okay, well then what am I willing to do? And then what am I going to incorporate, whether that be medications, supplements, herbs, lifestyle changes, all of those different things to get the results that I'm willing to put in the investment for, right? So that's how you have to think. Instead of can it be healed, we would have so many follow-up questions to that. And that's how I want you always thinking, not is this possible or impossible? Is the person that I'm talking to, do they have a mindset of possible, or do they have a mindset of impossible? Do they take the actions that would make this outcome possible, or do they refuse to take the outcomes or take the actions that would make the outcome possible? So that's how you've got to think through these things, because otherwise it's just, can you heal X condition? depending on the research that's been done, who you're following, who you're talking to, what they treat, what they do, what they've experienced, because that was the other thing as a practitioner. So many people would say with confidence that certain things couldn't be healed, but I saw the exact opposite. And so then my confidence came from another perspective, and then you realize that whoever you're subscribing to is just bringing their confidence based off of not only their expertise, but what they've actually seen. And so you've always got to take that as an understanding for yourself of, okay, just because that group or that modality says that it's impossible, it literally has nothing to do with me, right? And so that's how you've got to go into everything, is like, this is a you thing. So can anything be healed in you would depend on your personality, your drive, your dedication, your consistency, and how much work you're willing to do to get what you want, right? And so then the other component of this question, right? We can make one question last an hour, but I think it's valuable. So the second part of this is, can anything be healed by following the rules? So if you're new to me, following the rules is kind of how I summarize following the practical steps that interface with human physiology to have an outcome. And so I always distill it down to super, super simple. Like, there are certain steps to having pigmentation changes as a human being with skin, right? So are there multiple different variations of that based off of your ethnicity, where you're at on the planet, lots of different things? Yes, those are the little details in it, but there are you absolutely have to be exposed to light, not covered, without chemicals on it, to have these different outcomes, right? If you're a human being, and it works even if you don't believe in it. So that's what I talk about when we're talking about the rules. It's not anything that I made up. I just distilled it down, simplified it, and then have provided it in a way to where there's like actual steps to it, right? So when you're doing those things, it's not do those things heal the body again? It's those things. I see a lot of you seeing. He's so cute. He wanted to be my assistant today. Yeah. I know. Okay, so when it comes to following the rules, the way that you've got to think about following the rules is your body is always abiding by its laws. Like, just like your skin is always going to interface with light when you walk out, even if you're not, I'm going to tan, your body is still going to work in that same way, even if you're walking from your car to the grocery store. So those rules are at play, even if you're not engaging with them consciously. So when I talk about the rules, that's what I'm talking about. So you have to have those in place for everything. So everything that makes you well, everything that makes a person vibrant or would make us, create the most optimal version of you, are the same foundational, fundamental, basic principles that are required to say, okay, this person has, say, cancer, this person has an autoimmune condition, this person has a, fill in the blank of the millions of words that you could have been given. You still have to put those things into place. And so that's how I like to remove variables, remember, because the human body interfaces with a lot of different things. And we've talked about it before, but I think it's worth reiterating. So there's a lot of different things that can create the perfect expression of constipation in the human body. There's a lot of different things that can create the presentation of gas and bloating. There's a lot of different things. Some of those are psychological, some of them are emotional, some of them are environmental, some of them, it's just so many different factors. So if you want to make it as simple as you can, you've got to remove variables. And how my brain works is the most common or the most likely thing to be a contributing factor, I want to make sure that's not a variable. I want to make sure if you show up with a sunburn, we're not asking, are you out in the sun too much during the day, right? That would be the most obvious thing. Way before you go chase down, genetic SNPs or environmental toxicities or heavy metal, we're not even there yet. And if most of the time, almost all of the time, if you have the basics in the bag, you don't even have to chase down the zebras. Remember, I got certified in all those really sexy, cool things and never got to use them because the basics were so powerful. So that's what this is based off of, is well, shit. You didn't need all the lasers and the gadgets and the quantum frequencies and all of those different things. Those are super cool. But once a human being was living these foundational principles in a very basic, simple like dedicated way, all of the other things changed. But it's that we think in this way of following the rules is like taking a supplement. No, these rules are always working. Just like, again, think about sunlight. When you're out in it, it does what it does to your skin. When you're not in it, it does what it does to your skin. And if you're in front of a device right now, it's doing something hormonally. It's doing something chemically inside of you, even if you don't know what's happening. But when you do know how it works and how it happens, then you get to be the one controlling your tan, right? You don't have to be worried that you're going to get a sunburn. Why? Because I understand how this thing works. Can I sometimes break the rules and be like, you know what? I want a beach day. I want to stay out way past my skin's capacity. I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to have a sunburn, and I'm not going to panic tomorrow when I'm like beet red and not comfortable. You're going to have that little, cute, playful mentality of, I did that, right? But that's how you've got to think with everything. I did that. Even if you don't know that you're doing that. And that's why the rules are so important, because then when you understand how often you're breaking the rules of, say, like nutrition, most people don't realize that they're probably breaking the rules 90% of the time. Most of the people that have taken, if you've taken the nutrition class, what was the percentage of time that you were breaking the rules and not even knowing? And then when you realize that you do that, then you're like, my body is so badass because it cleans up after my mess. Even though I'm out there getting a sunburn every single day, I'm like, somehow my body is still healing, still being like, okay, sweetie, can we pay attention? Maybe one more time. Maybe one more time. Maybe if you see the sunburn one more time, you'll stop doing what you're doing, right? And that's how you've got to think through these things. So it happens even on the days that you're like, I'm not going to do my life as medicine today. That's impossible. Your life is always your medicine. Even the days when you're like, I'm going to be a turd and I'm going to eat like crap and that's your medicine. And if you really get into it, like, into the parts that we kind of talk about, the poetry parts of this, how you do that can even benefit you, right? If you truly understand this game. But you've got to understand the basic physiological game that your body has to play on. Your body, like the amount of mental power that you would have to go stand out in the sun all day long and prevent a sunburn is what a lot of you are trying to do with all of these other things, with gut, you are trying to like go against the greatest force, and then you're overwhelmed and you are like depleted emotionally and you don't know what to believe in, and you think that your body is the exception to a body can heal. A body can heal anything. No, it's just you're going against nature and you don't know it because you're like, okay, if I take all these supplements for my gut, I'm going to be, healed. But that's not how it works. If you're breaking the rules every single time you eat a meal, every single time you put food in your mouth, you're breaking a rule that your body has to abide by, even if you don't want to, right? And then when you understand it, like it starts changing your behavior moment to moment. And like I give this example all the time, you can go through all of those rules and be like, I'm about to eat this badass, huge, delicious meal, and then something can happen with somebody that walks in the room or sits down at your table, and now the answer to that rule cascade is not the same because it hit you emotionally. And now the game's totally different, and that's what people don't understand. How could you possibly tell somebody how they should eat if you're not sitting there with them asking them all of those questions, right? And so that's why in those masterclasses, I teach you to ask yourself those questions. And only you can know what the actual truth is of those answers. And then only you will know of what do I need to do to resolve this so that I can eat, right? And sometimes it's have a difficult question. Create a conflict right now so that you can become at peace mentally, emotionally, or whatever you need to do, right? In order to move to the next step, just to have your meal. And that's how powerful these things are. So when we're talking about following the rules, your body's always following the rules. The reason we did the truth about nutrition, the truth about light, is because it just is doing that, even if you're not thinking about it. It really doesn't care if you're like, I'm paleo. Your gut's gonna be like, but you're still not following the rules. Oh, well, now I'm vegan. You're still not following the rules. Well, now I'm fruitarian. Okay, you're still not following the rules, but you're making it easier to break the rules, right? And that's when you take that class, I know a lot of you are like, I get it. I get why being massively restrictive made me feel like I was a little bit better, right? Or when I simplified it down to only eating this one thing. It wasn't because that's what was healing you. It was just because that actually started following those rules, right? And so that's how you've got to start thinking. Light always does what light does, right? And if you're exposed to it, it's going to have that effect in you. Same thing with sleep. A lot of you have difficulty with sleep. When it comes to sleep, remember, do the light class first, because sometimes that resolves the hormonal component and like the circadian rhythm component. And if you don't get the changes you want, then take that sleep class as a standalone, because there are a lot of other things that go into that. Because remember, when it comes to sleep, sleep is not just the opposite of awake, right? Just like having an orgasm isn't the opposite hormones of not having it, right? They're both their own hormonal cascade and dance. And so when it comes to sleep, it's not just turning off the switch, right? The brain does its own things. The hormones do their own things, and they're totally different than during the waking state. And you have to follow the rules so that sleep is the appropriate outcome of what you want, right? Like what he's doing. He's so cute. I just feel like he's so cute. It's a break for your brain, because I know I'm going pretty fast right now. So I'm going to kind of circle back to make sure that we understand this part of this question. And then while I do this, you can look at how cute he is. Because he's so cute. His name's Billy. He's my high maintenance perfection of a little fur child. Right now, he's a big fan of my boyfriend, and I'm a little jealous, but I'm okay with it. We might circle back to getting out of your own head. Like I said, that one keeps popping up. I did have a good time on my date last Friday. Thank you for asking. A big pivot is. Okay. I think it's making sense. I know I've been, some of you are talking about the Michael Jordan component that I was talking about. I love to like see what some of the best do, because you really start paying attention to their mentality. And that was one of the things that is so impressive, is that, again, it wasn't his physical, what he was given physically, that made him such a powerhouse, but it was how powerful his mind was. And even if you've ever read the book by his trainer, I can't remember what his trainer's name was, but his trainer, was really hard on him and said that he was even harder to push himself even more than even what that trainer thought was, a good idea for even an athlete at that caliber. And it's that mind, right? And I know we are going to get into mind for the next masterclass. It's in the works, because it's so important. So Nikki brought up a good point. So a lot of your cycle issues for women, painful periods, cramping, lots of those different things will be resolved with that nutrition when you start changing your gut, right? So it's a big conversation, not for right here, but maybe a question for another time, how those two things interplay with each other. But a lot of it is just calming down. Again, the inflammation is appropriate, but you will have repercussions to that system-wide. And so the inflammation should be there. It's appropriate because you're breaking the rules of digestion. And it's just creating a lot of things that the body has to clean up. Mm-hmm. I laugh at some of your comments. And then I realized you guys didn't know I laughed at it. I'm going to get better at this. I promise. Yes. I don't think sleep is boring. Billy definitely knows how to sleep, this kid. Okay. That's right, Tim Grover. Thanks, guys. Okay. All right, so then we're going to go to, we're going to wrap up with that question. So if I were to just give you a quick answer to that question, can anything be healed by following the rules? Yes, right? Absolutely. And the rules have to be followed if you're trying to heal something, definitely, and even if you're not trying to heal something. And so what you'll find is the people that don't have a quote-unquote disease presentation are probably accidentally following those rules, right? And when you get into the rules, you realize that it's not this like super strict way of living. It's a very poetic, fluid, because it's life. Life is what is medicating you. And it's not a rigid life. It's not a restrictive life. It's a disciplined and a true and a wise and a full life that medicates. But no matter what, whatever version of your day you're choosing, whatever version of life you're choosing, that is medicating you. There's no way that you get out of a day without it being medicine. And the more you understand that, the more you play with that of, okay, I had an emotional thing, it was a hard hit, and then I broke the rules on this, and then I ate something that I didn't want to, and then stop it. Because then you look at how much time you've got left in a day, and even if you have 5 minutes left, you can change your chemistry to where the medicine actually went net positive instead of staying in that more poisonous type state. Yes, you can accidentally fall. So you go in there and like put out the rules, like you've taken those classes, and you'll eventually, like once you really get it into your mind, instead of how we think now of like, okay, ask if it's organic, ask if it's gluten-free, ask if it has dairy in it, ask if it is sourced from this farm, ask what they cooked it on, ask if it touched plastic ever, ask if it ever, oh my gosh, instead of thinking that way, when you ease into the thoughts that go into your mind are, ask about how I'm feeling, ask about how I'm thinking, ask about what I'm experiencing, ask about if I'm even hungry, ask about, that's when you're accidentally going to do it. So like in my life now, I'm not sitting there like on a date. That's appropriate. He's always a little curveball and I love it. So you're welcome. Look how cute he is. So you're not going to be sitting there being like, let me go through all the steps of digestion real quick. You're going to think it through and then instantaneously make decisions based off of that. And the cool thing is it actually gives you more freedom than the other way of doing it. If I can only eat organic, I can only eat this. If it's ever touched plastic, if it ever touched this bad pan, if it ever did this, then I can't have it. And that is such an overwhelming way to live. The beauty of, you know, because you can't unknow things, right? So now your opportunity is use it appropriately. So now if you're set in front of options where you had organic or not, choose the organic, right? But because you're following the rules, that matters a lot less than what it required previously, right? So it's literally just a totally different world that you're playing on, totally different. And so you can still use your intellect, because a lot of you asked about, you know, that's the next question we're going to get into, you know, relying on the intellect. So it's not that, you know, there aren't foods that give you more medicine than others, but the way that we're teaching it and the way that you see health and wellness really pushing that world is not conducive to health or wellness. And it actually, when you go into the rules, it breaks the rules because you're now in a state of fear. You're now in a state of overwhelm. You're now so worried about what you're about to put in your mouth that now you shouldn't even eat it, right? And so when you understand the rules, it naturally makes you ask different questions. It naturally makes you pay attention to different things instead of, did it touch a pan that had Teflon on it? It's, where am I? Can I even eat? I don't even need to think about the pan yet or the food. I've got to think about me. And am I even prepared hormonally chemically to even receive a meal. And so it's naturally going to make you think differently. That's why I love it. It teaches you without you even having to really study it. You have to understand it. And then you just naturally will start asking different questions, better questions, and then you make your decisions based off of those things, and it just starts taking care of itself. And then you do accidentally, because if you ever hang out with me, and I ever get, emotionally hit or something, you'll notice that I won't eat. And it's not because I'm trying to stick it to anyone, or it's because I understand how it all works. And I'm really attuned to how my body feels in those situations, and then my focus will be to resolve it, to understand it, to move through it, and not to cover it up with the meal that I was about to eat, right? So these things are they'll naturally happen to where you accidentally follow the rules every day, all day long, and you're not even thinking about it. That's actually when I talk to my patients or people I've worked with, I always tell them it truly becomes medicine when you quit thinking about it. When you quit trying to use it as medicine is when the medicine really freaking hits. Again, think about, the difference between going to the ocean and wanting to get, all the negative ions and all the stuff and the earthing and the waves and the magnetism and the light and just being there with somebody you love, feeling the sun, smelling the smells, playing in the ocean. The medicine is totally different, and the two people can be on the same day, on the same beach, experiencing the same thing, but getting medicated totally differently. And the person that's out there all rigid, trying to make sure everything's perfect and they're healing and they're doing all their healthy things, is not the one that's getting the most medicine. And that's why all of this is so upside down and backwards, because it doesn't matter what it looks like. We're in a world that's look at me. Look how perfect, look how healthy, look how put together. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters what it actually is. So the person that, we'll do the beach example, the person that's out there to try to get all the healing from the earth and the healing from the ocean and the healing from the sun and the light and they're stressed out and they're needing earth to heal them, is actually creating the chemistry of stress more so than receiving what they think that they're receiving. Versus somebody who has no idea that any of that's even going on. They don't really even think about earthing or the magnetism from the waves or the salt composition, or they're just there enjoying their day. They accidentally get more medicine, right? So there's other factors that go into play based off of, when you start talking about light. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about think about it. Think about what actually matters when you're doing these things. Think about what actually matters when you're about to have a meal, right? And not in a way of you've got to think independently. Not how the world is teaching us to think. But think about it. If you're not digesting a meal, how much does it matter what you're going to not digest, right? It'll matter to some degree, but how much? Definitely not as much pressure as you're putting on it. Definitely not the magnitude that you think that you're about to influence your body. And oftentimes, sometimes, depending on the personality, it pushes you so much further in the wrong direction that's when things get really, really frustrating. So following the rules is something that is always happening, right? Your body always follows the rules. So that means you're probably, if you don't understand them, you're probably breaking them more often than not, right? And so then when you understand the rules, then when you're breaking it, and then you can break them intelligently. We talked, if you haven't checked out the one on the subscription page, we went specifically into how do you, break nutrition intelligently? What does that even look like, right? And then it gets to be kind of playful and kind of funny, right? I'm going to catch up on some questions here. Yeah, so everyone with information overload stressing you out, you've got to simplify. You've got to simplify. Simplify, simplify, simplify. So many people are adding a mess to a mess, and it's not conducive to healing. Yes, I will save this for those of you asking. I save it, and then it just automatically pops up on my page. And then I do put it on YouTube. For those of you that like to pause it, you pause me. No, I'm kidding. We go long. Okay. Okay, so for those of you talking about, you might starve to death because you're a super sensitive person. So that's another conversation that needs to be had, because part of the learning, and that's why I love those rules, because they force you into truth. They force you into changing. Like I said, if you just take the nutrition class, those rules force you into handling life in a truthful way. And so for those of us, and I would still say I'm kind of in that camp of very sensitive, right? Sensitivity is not a problem. Handling and managing and being adaptable with that level of sensitivity is your objective. It's not anesthetize you. It's not numb out the feelings. It's not trying to be so strong and so that you don't feel anything. It's no, feel what you feel, but be able to manage it without putting that on other people, right? That's now your work. So when you're saying like, okay, well, sounds like you are in a state to where your answer is always don't eat, right? So now you get to be like, okay, if I eat, I'm going to break the rules. So one, it's already medicine because you are engaging actively in the outcome. So it's going to be like, I know I'm staying out in the sun too long and I'm probably going to get a sunburn. So then when you get a sunburn, you're not worried about how messed up your body is. You're like, I did that, right? And how do I take care of it? The other component of that, I'm watching this a little bit. So the other component of that is it's going to ask you to change tomorrow. Change by your next meal. What's really underneath that sensitivity? And what's really being asked of you? Because remember when I talked about those rules, it's not just keep everything the same forever. No, part of this is the evolution of you as a human being, right? That's why I always say the gift of healing is not the outcome. The gift of healing is everything that had to change in you, everything about you that had to be elevated, everything in you that had to be stripped away, and then who you became because of the process. The person you become is more valuable than the healing that's going to happen. And that's the truth. And when you really understand it, then you're okay that nutrition is pushing you. No, you shouldn't eat today. Why? And then I would sit with myself and be like, because I had to do this work with me. I always do this work with me, right? It's always going to push you and be like, you shouldn't eat right now. Why? Because you're letting your emotions dictate your feelings to a point where your chemistry has changed to where you would be better off running away right now than sitting down and having a meal. And that's what's true. So if you want to sit down and have the meal, then we need to do the work, right? And that's when we talk about in that class. So then go do what's required. Have the conversation. Manage your emotions. Think practically instead of emotionally, right? We'll clarify when we do emotions more in the future, the language, right? Because sometimes these things get messy because we use emotions for a lot of different things. But I think you get what I'm saying here. So it is asking you to change. And that's why I love it so much. So it's going to keep holding you. You're going to follow the rules, follow the rules, follow the rules. And do you see how it's nudging you to be like, now change where you really need to change? So then those of you that ask, like, how do I know, what needs to change? This is a perfect example. If you're always getting to, no, you shouldn't eat a meal when you answer all those questions in nutrition, and then you're like, well, okay, mind, heart, body, emotions, psyche, soul, spirit. Why? And it says, because you're letting your relationship govern your emotional state. And instead of it being a problem, or you're now going to be engaged in the actual problem, not how do I micromanage my food to where I mitigate and minimize the symptoms that I'm having from breaking the rules of digestion. Do you see how that's a forever endless game and you're never going to get on top of it versus, oh, I'm not going to eat right now. And I'm going to go create a conflict with my lover, with my partner, with my parent, with my child, and we're going to handle this until I have emotional resolution within me, or me with me. I'm going to see what I need to see. And so do you see how it's not like I could tell you where your next step is, but your body will? How? Well, I was just following the rules of nutrition, and it forced me to have a conversation with my spouse. It forced me to clear up, my dependency on this. It forced me to look at how I engage with this. I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So the rules are the rules are the rules always, and it forces you into truth. And that's why I love it. I love it so much because it forces you into the work that you actually need to do, because you're not distracted by manipulating away the results of the life that you're living. Do you see the difference? Like really, like if you pause, you can pause me here. Think about that. Think about it. And you're like, ah. And then you're like, I don't want to have conflict. I don't want to look behind that door. I don't want to. I know. It'd be so much easier to just only eat fruit, right? Or eat an antihistamine diet, or eat a low FODMAP, or eat a... Trust me, I've been down every possible road you can imagine to get back to here. And so that's what I'm trying to get you to think through, because yes, that's a perfect question. It forces you when it's like, nope, she shouldn't eat. Nope, she shouldn't eat. Nope, she shouldn't eat. Then you break the rules intelligently, like we talked about on my subscription page, right? And you manage where you need to start managing things in your life, because that is the cause anyways. It's not your gut. Your gut is not the root cause ever. Ever. It's a response to something, and it's responding appropriately. But you're continuing it so much that you're starting to think that it's the problem, but it's not. Just like when you go through those questions, just like you said, I'm highly sensitive. That's what you're being asked to work on. Not that it's wrong, but how do we adapt to being who you are? How do you adapt to feeling what you feel? Where do we need to create boundaries? That's when you really start getting into all these other areas. That's why I didn't lead with relationships. I didn't lead with mind even. I didn't lead with all of these other areas, because that's a level deeper. And if you follow those rules of nutrition and you're dedicated to that alone, do you see how it would lead you here without me? That's what a truth would do. It'd be like, okay, I have to do this stuff. I know. And it's going to be there waiting for you no matter what. That's what I mean by it's still there. You take a supplement, you take a ton of digestive enzymes, you take bitters, you take herbs, you take enzymes, the cause is still there. Those were not, low hydrochloric acid was not your cause. That was the effect of a cause, right? And it is now your responsibility to go and do, and it's not, I need to go work on with someone to uncover all of my traumas. No, your trauma is sitting there right with you in that version. And that's the other beautiful thing about life. It's sitting there right with you. It's showing you. The thing that hit you that made you say, I'm too sensitive to eat, that's what it needs you to work on. It doesn't need you to go find something else. It's that one. That's the one that's saying this. Pay attention. I'm right here. I'm right here so much you can't eat. Pay attention to me. Do something with me. Don't try to push me away. Don't try to hide me. Don't try to run away. Look at me and let's do something here. Right? And that's when you start really getting to, the juicy stuff. That's the work that, we get to, that I try to really push you if we've ever worked together. Like, you're getting to here, but you need to follow the rules like it's your job to give yourself the energy and the capacity to go do the actual freaking work. The work is not following the rules. That's the intelligence of living. That's not the work. Like, the work is not, to get a tan. The work isn't go get out in the sun and, no, that's just, if you want a tan, you better do those things, right? That's just very practical cause and effect. The rules, again, let me say it again, the rules are not the work. Do they require a level of commitment and dedication from you? Yes, but so does everything that's creating what you're fighting against right now. You're very committed to it. So you're just using your commitment in a different way. So it's a beautiful question. I'm so glad you asked that. That's the point. That's exactly the point. It was a brilliant question. I love that question. Okay. So we will talk about mood and emotions and relationships and all of that stuff, but I think that needs to be a master class so we can simplify it down, because it's a big one. Let's see. I think I did that. I don't know why my phone does that. I did that on a FaceTime with my mom today, and it just popped in. I'm like, well, there we go. The Chuck Norris thumbs up. Okay. So, and remember again when we talk about breaking the rules, because a lot of you are talking about the emotional component of that nutrition class. And so, you know, you're worried about people that are accidentally breaking the rules because of what's going on in the world or certain things that they can't control in their family. You still, remember how we talked about last week, we still don't know that they're breaking the rules completely, right? Because every human being experiences things in a different way, and then they process things in a different way. And so, again, you get into the nuances and the subtleties and the details of being a human being. We want to keep it very simple here for the purpose here. But I've learned a lot by working with people that have gone through really, 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 really devastatingly hard things. And you see another version of human come out in those situations. So that would be a different conversation too. Okay, I'm glad things are clicking. Yeah, I know, pay attention. It's like, oh my gosh. It's the toe beans. I can't handle it. Okay. How would I describe the work then? That's a good question. So the work is what you actually need to change in real life. And it's usually in mindset. It's usually in self-concept. It's usually in relationships. It's usually in how you handle and manage stress and what you view as stress. Remember, in that energy class, we talk about stress a lot and how a lot of the stress that everyone's avoiding is essential for your immune system to be as robust as you want it to be. So this world of we should never be stressed, that's not true, right? There's a difference between the types of stress. We go into that in that energy class. That's important to know, but we don't need a bubble life, right? And so again, that's a different conversation when it comes to stress, but it's the life that you're medicating, right? Oh my gosh, he's starting to be a distraction for me. Hi. Okay, so the work is what is going on in your life, right? What is going on in your relationships? How do you manage everything that you experience? Basically, how you handle life. And is it conducive to your well-being, or is it corrosive? And it's what a lot of people don't want to look at because they want to call it their personalities, or they want to call it, you know, something based off of a trauma. But if you're aware of it, it's now your opportunity to do something about it, right? In a very beautiful way. There's no part of being a human where you're wrong at all. Everything makes sense when you truly start to understand, but then you have to put yourself in that role of, if I want a different outcome, I'm the one that creates it. And you have to truly forever give up feeling, I hate the word victim because we don't use it right, but to give you the gist, to be a victim of anything, right? You can turn anything into something that will benefit you, right? But you have to be the one in the driver's seat doing that. So that's the work, is what's going on in real life. Because remember, the body's natural state is well. That's natural. So all of the healing expressions that we call symptoms, and the accumulation of healing expressions that we call diagnosing, a word that you're given, that's not natural. That's how the body is healing the life that you're living, right? So really think through that on your own. Natural is well. Like, if your skin got a cut, natural is that it just knows how to heal. And when it's healed to completion, when the scab, you know, falls off and all the scar tissue forms and then it starts breaking down back to skin, that's natural, right? The state of the wound being open is not your natural state. So that applies body-wide, internal as well. Yeah, Billy follows the rules. he's the king of the rules. He has so much, his boundaries are impeccable. This guy, when he's chill, he's chill. When he's on, he's on. He's like, touch me sometimes and then don't. Okay, now is it? He's okay with it now. He's so cute. Okay. All right, so we're going to wrap up here. I'm going to read through these to make sure that this one was digested well. Because our point here is not to waste time, but to change our thinking. Because when you change your understanding, then all of it's just going to take care of itself, because you're going to start seeing how ridiculous some of the other stuff is. Not that, again, the people are wrong. It's just you're going to see how it doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense to you, it's really easy to let it go. So that's kind of, maybe that's our circle back. So how do you let go of, you know, your comfort zone of all this other way of thinking, like medication and manipulating the body and that being your savior? And if you're not testing and poking and prodding, how can you feel comfortable and safe in your body? Go after truth. And then when you see truth, anything that's not truth just is ridiculous. In this beautiful, simple way of, it's not hard to not believe it. You kind of giggle a little bit at yourself of like, I can't believe I bought into it for so long. Because it really doesn't make any sense. Like, even for me, I spent so much money and so much of my life trying to subscribe to this way of thinking, and it just kept not making sense. And that's when I just had to finally like throw in the towel and be like, this doesn't make sense. And if I'm going to be doing this, shouldn't it at least make sense? So start with simple truths. Go to the depths of them. If you've taken any of the master classes, go to the depth of like you as the case study of that nutrition. Really study it before you jump to something new. Go to the truth of it. The truth, the truth, the truth. Be your own experiment, and it will show you so much, right? Have a day where you're like, okay, I'm going to dedicate to the rules, and I'm going to eat whatever I want. And then I'm going to dedicate to the rules, and I'm going to eat, quote unquote, perfectly. And then I'm going to dedicate to the rules, and I'm going to eat like, quote unquote, shit, right? What were the results? And then flip it. Then the experiment is, okay, now I'm going to not follow the rules, and I'm going to eat like, quote unquote, shit. I'm going to not follow the rules. I'm going to eat, quote unquote, perfectly. I'm going to not follow the rules, and, you know, do your experiment, and it'll show you itself, right? That's why I love it, because it doesn't require me to be good at anything. That's what I kind of tell my patients all the time. Like, I would love to be like, I'm the reason it works, but you're the reason it works. Truth is the reason it works. It works because, you know, skin pigmentation changes because of your skin and it interfacing with these natural elements, not because of a doctor, right? So that's all we're talking about here. He is such a stud. All right. So I think this is going to be it for today. Enough to kind of digest and soak in. I did want to circle back because a lot of y'all were talking about the letting go. Here, I'm going to check on something. Okay. All right. So on the letting go part, so I think what a lot of you, I don't know if any of you put it in there, what you were specifically wanting to let go. If you were one of those that asked, I think there were like 5 of you that asked about that. What are you talking about specifically? Because I know one of the questions I had, but I think it might need more time, was specifically on like letting go of medical testing, letting go of lab testing, letting go of always needing imaging to feel safe in your own body. But I feel like this had more of an emotional or psychological flair to it. If any of y'all want to circle back and tell me what specifically you want to know. And in the meantime, we can take a commercial break and look at how cute his face is. He's so cute. I don't know if you're not from my subscription page, I used to be like a dog person, and I only had dogs. And there was a time in my life where I had a Siberian Husky, a boxer, and a cow dog all at the same time. and we were like our own little pack. And then I moved to a property that had a barn, and it had mice in it. And so I grew up on a farm, and the appropriate, right, fix for that was to get a cat. And so I looked up cats, and I was going to get a mouser. And then I found that. I'll have to show you the picture. Or I put the picture up on, there that thing is again. I put the picture up on the subscription page when he was a baby. So that picture came up, and then I could not get him. He's never seen a barn. He did catch a mouse on a trip to the desert one time. So I can't say that he's not a mouser, but he definitely wasn't. And then I lived in like a little small town. And I went to the feed store that was like down the street the next day after I invested in this little bundle of joy and got all of his little bougie accessories and all the things that he would need. And they were like, they had this big sign. They had free cat if you purchase a bag of food. And I was like, one day late, but that's how we got Billy. Yeah, that's a cat. Okay. All right. So I didn't, okay, emotionally. Self-love and self-healing. To trust, self-love, self-healing, and then emotionally. Oh, and then some of you are wanting to let go of people. Okay. So I do think that might be a bigger, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's a little bit more weighted and emotional. But what I would say, for the most part, that's an ant. So every week we've got to have some bug show up. So if you see that, that's just an ant. Try to get rid of him. Okay. Some of these questions at the end are also really good. I might put up another little question prompt in my stories for some of you that have just joined and added some of these questions on at the end, because we've kind of been here for a little bit. I know we need a relationship course. We're going to get to it. But I just want to be just super brief when it comes to letting go. One is, it's more of a process and less of a point that you need to get to. And so when you think of it that way, it makes it a little bit easier to go into. But I actually think this is going to be too much time for today, because that's a really big question. But when it comes to letting go of fear and letting go of the fear of your physical symptoms, one of the biggest things that you can do is, one, go into it practically. I touch on it a little bit in the Illusions in Medicine masterclass, one of the first ones, the actual first one I ever did, just to help you start thinking through it. Because a lot of your fears are based off of something that you have to believe in, or something that we don't have answers for. And a lot of that is with regards to death and dying, and so there's just a bigger conversation on where those things touch and where symptoms and disease cross over, and the truth of those things that you see with regards to health and healing, and then where that touches death. And so you've really got to go into, because I would have to, it might even be easier if I had like a dialogue of like what it actually is that you were afraid of. Or when you get to like the fear of symptoms, you've really got to go to the depths of it, because most of you aren't really, we don't like pain, we don't like discomfort, but that's not really what you're afraid of. And so you've really got to go ask deeper levels of questions than just these general things to know how to take the appropriate steps out of it. But a lot of what I see is when you're living in a way, and when you start understanding these truths and you start interfacing with them in a way that empowers you, it naturally gets rid of a lot of fears that could have only existed with that previous mentality, that previous way of living and doing things. Because a lot of what I see people do is governed by fear. I actually had this conversation with my boyfriend, because he brought this point up, and it's so powerful. A lot of the decisions people make is not based off of anything but fear. And it's not a wrong thing. It makes sense because that's how it's been fed to us. But when you start living in this way and you start understanding the truth about your body and the truth about your life, and you start seeing how much of a key component you actually are in the whole thing, it will naturally alleviate some of those fears that could have only existed when you were a victim to everything, when you had no control in anything. When you needed everything external to you to be okay, to survive, to heal, when you flip that around, it will naturally resolve so many of the fears that plague so many different people. Because you won't, when you know that the source of healing is within, and it's not in this cerebral way. Not just we say your life is your medicine and that the body only knows healing and that your symptoms are healing, but it's not giving it lip service. It's living in a way that reflects that. It's showing your belief through living action to where people don't have to ask you what you believe in because it's so visible in how you live. You're not frantic in your actions. You're not frantic in your accumulation of things. Everything has intent. Everything has purpose. There's a stillness. There's a power in the presence and in the decisions that you make. And when you live that way, it gives you that security that you thought you were going to get through having all the best supplements, through having the most perfect life, because that's what you're looking for, right? Is that security that I'm okay, right? I need to know that I'm okay because I don't feel okay. So how can you show me I'm okay? Lab testing and all of these things. But then you realize, I'm sure everyone's done this, you go get all the lab tests, you go get all the imaging, you go get all the scans, and even if they come back clear, you're happy until you get back home. And then the fear starts up again, right? And so you know that that's not even a true comfort. It's not a true comfort. It's not even a true answer. It's not even a true embrace, right? So to live in a certain way where you are your prevention, not something you take, where you are the one in the driver's seat of your health and your well-being, and you know at any given moment you could change. Any given moment, right? No matter the circumstance, you could change the chemistry of it. When you understand that to a degree that you live it, you're not just thinking it, but that's the thing. That's why I talk about it all the time. You've got to take action because your actions are what is communicating back to that nervous system, back to your brain of this is livable proof. You're trying to fight livable proof and misinformation with non-action. And you can be the most positive person in the world and it's just not going to work. Positivity will help, but you've got to live it. You've got to be like, how do I, because like I say that all the time. I think it was at the Heart of Freedom speech that I did. I had to believe in the medicine before I achieved that outcome. It wasn't that it proved itself to me and then I believed in it. And that's what everyone's kind of asking for. Show me that it worked in somebody else. Show me that, when you need to be like, I need to see it. I need to go get out in the sun and see what sun does on my skin. Instead of just hearing everyone else talk about tans. I want to know, for me. I want to know what it tastes like, feels like. I want to know the whole experience. And you've got to have that initiative, I want it. Right? How do I get rid of fear? You've got to live in a way that, one, aligns with your belief. You've got to know what you believe in. You can't borrow somebody else's beliefs, right? You can't just give it lip service. You can't just go and consume until you quench your insecurity and then go live a little and then go consume to feed off of the certainty that you think you're getting from all these other people, because you've got to know that that's what you're doing. I'll put up a video I did a long time ago. What you're gaining from a lot of people, especially on these platforms, is their confidence in what they're talking about. But what you don't realize is some of them are just performing, and then all of them are capitalizing off of the fact that you need to get out there and get your own confidence through living it. Because when you follow the steps, when you do all of these things, you don't question it. You trust it, right? And trust is something that you have to build. It's not just this mindless thing of, I hope it works. It's, I'm going to do what's required. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to commit and go all the way in. And then I'm going to choose and make decisions within that choosing as I go, instead of sitting back here hoping that I can ask a million questions, learn a million different things, and then I'll take my first step. So once you take that step, it starts changing all the answers after that. And the security that you're reaching for will never be in a capsule. It will never be in a procedure. It won't even be in a doctor. Because that's one thing that I started experiencing was, you know, the tendency for the practitioner to be the security. And that's impossible. You're living your life every single day, and then you see a practitioner. They're not the cause, the creator, the director of your health at all, right? So they can be an input, absolutely, but you've got to get to a point, and your goal should really be to where your confidence and your security is only within your hands, and you want it. You want it. You want to be like, no, I want to get out there and ride the waves on my own. I want to be the one, I want to know how to do this. And what a lot of people don't want to experience is the discomfort to get to that level of security, right? You're going to get uncomfortable, right? Unfamiliar discomfort is what a lot of people are avoiding. And that's the path to having that certainty, having that security, having that faith in yourself in a true way, and not just wishful thinking. You've got to put in the work and really experience a life that echoes all of those truths back to you, and it will take care of itself, right? And then you're left face to face with those questions that we can't really answer, right, when it comes to death and why we die. And that's what I kind of go into in that Illusions in Medicine masterclass. Because when I worked in the hospital, there were a lot of questions that couldn't be answered, and they made me massively uncomfortable. Because when I was back there, you know, it wasn't just the bodies that had something quote unquote wrong with them that died. Perfect bodies did, young bodies did, beautiful bodies did. And then when I started asking questions, there were no answers, right? And so that will touch on what maybe we'll go into next week of, so your perfect labs are what you're putting all your faith into to prevent death. And is it true, right? And those were some of those questions that I asked after I saw some of the things that I saw that you got to go into, and you got to be willing to see the truth. But in order to see the truth, you've got to be willing to lose the comfort of your illusions. And that's really where you have to start first, because it's not comfortable, right? To go into truth is not a comfortable path, but it's worthwhile, and it's liberating, and it's empowering, and it's true even if you don't know about it, right? But you've got to be the one that's willing to take it. Because once you see it, you can't not see it. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me when I asked those questions. I couldn't unsee what I revealed to myself. That all our manipulation had nothing to do with life, with the preserving or the beating death, and that's what a lot of you are about to go head to head with if you really chase down what's behind some of these fears. So maybe we go into that when we have more time. Yeah, letting go of the testing, letting go of the imaging, letting go of, we'll go into that. I think it's important. Okay. We'll answer some of these relationship things maybe at another time too. Because they are a huge input into your whole entire day. It's a lot of medicine. A lot of medicine. Ooh, I like this question. So I'm going to put up the question box one more time in the stories. If you're not familiar with it, I just, it's the little, where my face is, and it has the little rainbow circle around it. You'll just click on that. And then I put in there a little prompt that says ask a question, because some of these are really beautiful questions. And I want to make sure we keep them even if we don't address them next week. So this one right here, so does fear hold a little truth of you, even if it's not true? I want, if you could go put that in that prompt when I put it up, because I want to go into that, because I think it's a very beautiful, powerful question. And then just like the fear of symptoms, that question as well. And then we can go into losing loss as well. Ooh, okay. So this one right here, can you put this in the question prompt? Because I would definitely want to go into this, but we're out of time for today. The question I'm looking at right now is it better to get a scan and find out it's fine because of the fear of quote unquote what if is in the back of my mind, or just keep applying truths? I want to go into that. We might start with that one. So if you can, put that one in the question thing that I'm going to put up in my stories, and we'll start with that next week. Because that's powerful, and that's going to take us into all of these little places. I love, love, love your questions. And do you see again, I know we've talked about it before, how a beautiful question pulls a more beautiful answer? These are really good questions. All right, and so for all of you that are just now showing up, we are going to save this so you can start from the top. It's another lengthy one. I think we went through only 2 questions. And we're just going to keep chipping away. There's so many things that we can share. All right, I'm gonna have to hop out for today, and we'll do another one of these next week, and we'll probably lead with that question because I think it's gonna pull in a lot of other areas that would be very helpful for all of you. Thank you all for being here. Some of you that were here the whole time, like I said, if something hit, if something changed you, go do something with it. Go, even if it's a thought, if you apply something, you're going to get more out of it than just having this in your mind somewhere without applying anything. So if you found something valuable, apply it. If something hit, even if something offended you, go into it. Why? What did it touch? What did it push? What belief rubbed up against it that you really want to hold on to, and why? And then go find a truth, right? Even if I say something, always go and try to distill it down and be like, on every side of it, is it a truth? Is it a truth no matter who you apply it to? Is it a truth no matter what perspective you're looking in on it? Is it a truth? Because like that's how I had to think in order to get to even where I got here today, of like, if there's an exception to it, is it really true? Not is it right or correct based off of, but is it true? When we're talking about truth, it can't just be a mental position truth, right? All right, it's so good to see so many of your faces. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to go put up that question box, and you can put it in, and we will keep chipping away at this for as long as these are valuable to you. And for those of you that like them to where you can pause me, I do put it up on my YouTube channel as well, because I know that you can kind of multitask easier on that platform. But this one's just easiest for me right now to come and do it live in real time. I know, and Billy. Oh my gosh. One more time with Billy. He's so cuddly. He's gonna get a brother soon. All right, love you all. So good to see some of your names. I can kind of see your faces too. And it's so funny because some of your names I am familiar with, even if they're not a true name. So I appreciate you guys too. All right, I'm gonna go cuddle this one. Enjoy the rest of your day. And like I said, even if you have a minute, if today was a rough day, change it. Do something, anything a little bit better, anything that makes you feel a little bit better, anything that makes you respect yourself a little bit more, pushes you in the direction that you want. It matters. These things build up. It's these micro things, not always those big, huge steps. All right, I'm out.